Good evening. It's my pleasure to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Dunwoody City Council at 6 o'clock on January 25th, 2021 to order, unless there is an objection. Seeing none, this meeting is called to order. Councilwoman Harris, can you lead us in the invocation and then the pledge, please?
At this meeting, help us to make decisions which keep us faithful to our mission and reflect our values. Give us strength to hold to our purpose, wisdom to guide us, and a keen perception to lead us. And above all, keep us charitable as we deliberate. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm not sure who's running public comment in the chamber, but Ginger, we can start with anyone you have, and maybe because you're downstairs, you might know, or because you're by City Hall chambers, you might know if anyone's there to speak.
Yes, ma'am. We have Brittany at the dais to let you know, and also Robert Wolford had signed up on public comment.
All right, Robert, why don't you go ahead and take your 3 minutes, please. Well,
hold on one second.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, you should be able to unmute and speak at this time.
Okay, thank you, Ginger. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is Robert Wolford, and I would like to speak briefly tonight about our elections here in Georgia and how they're conducted, and one of the biggest threats that is posed to our free and fair elections here in Georgia, which of course would include our local elections as well as state and national. Our neighbor and Dunwoody resident, Chris Carr, claims on his official website for the Office of Attorney General, quote, as Attorney General, Carr believes that he has no more solemn duty than to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia, and the interests of the people of the state of Georgia, end quote. Mr. Carr will have a chance to prove this claim and uphold his solemn duty by investigating and prosecuting private citizen Donald J. Trump for criminal solicitation to commit election fraud, a violation of Georgia law coded in OCGA under Title 21, Chapter 2, Article 15, Section 21-2-604. On January 2nd, 2021, Donald J. Trump violated Georgia law when he solicited election fraud, as is well evidenced and documented in his recorded phone call to our Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. This crime must not go unpunished. What makes Donald J. Trump's crime of soliciting election fraud even more insidious and injurious to the citizens of Georgia and his numerous false and unsubstantiated claims that others committed election fraud in our state while he was openly interfering in our Georgia elections and brazenly violated Georgia election laws in the process. Prosecutors in Georgia, reporters and journalists in Georgia, legislators and other state officials in the state of Georgia are duty bound to investigate this crime and to report to the public on the process of investigation, prosecution, and final adjudication of any and all election fraud crimes committed by Donald J. Trump against the citizens of Georgia. Failure to do so is a malfeasance of duty to the citizens of Georgia and will lead only to more injustice and disorder to our state elections. Those are my comments tonight. I would like to, since I have an extra minute, I'd like to just take 1 second to thank the council for serving our community. I know that you often only hear the negative or complaints from citizens. One of the reasons is we don't get a lot of time, but I do want you to know that I appreciate your service to our community. You're not paid nearly enough to do the job that you do, make the decisions you do, and I appreciate you filling the role that you do, and I wish more citizens would step up when the opportunity presents itself. Thank you. Good night and good luck.
Thank you. Ginger, is there anyone else who would like to speak
I show Andrea Hirsch with her hand raised. You should be able to unmute and speak at this time.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. It's actually Joe Hirsch. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Pretty good. I'm speaking tonight regarding the SLUP 20-02A regarding the proposal for the mixed-use elder apartment complex near Perimeter Mall, which sounds like a nice idea and a nice project. Mostly in favor of it. However, I'm trying to see what's been brought and changed from some of the concerns last week that were raised, particularly what's being brought to the table from the developer. Recall that this is a SLUP, special land use permit. What makes it special to allow a developer to increase the amount of concrete that's put down over our ground? What makes it so special that the city would approve it? What is the developer going to do for us, and why is it so unique? I mean, the city came up with a set amount for how much concrete can be covering the ground for a reason. It was well researched and well documented. So a SLUP gives the opportunity to a developer or a homeowner, if there's something unique, extenuating circumstances or something wonderful that someone's bringing to the table, or if there's particularly a hardship that's preventing a development or a homeowner from doing something. And as of last meeting, we've heard nothing. You know, there were, I think Joe requested some input on perhaps would there be some roofing added that would be green. Tom asked about, I believe about some impervious tiles. And I'd like to know what is it that's going to change, because if we continue to just say, well, you know, let's toss out the number that we set out at 65%. Let's give them 80% just because the developer asked for it, and you know, it sounds like a nice program. Then you're disregarding everything that the city was created and all the codes and laws that we've established. I mean, why bother? I mean, you've heard me say that numerous times with all the, I won't bring up, but also many other codes. Why bother doing what you're doing if you can just toss things out without a good reason? I mean, there has to be a good reason why the developer will be granted a SLUP. And otherwise, you're not representing the residents and the citizens who live here currently. You're representing the developers. And on a side note from that, I find it interesting that at the last meeting, there were three people's on face. There were three faces representing the developer and the attorneys for the developer.
20 seconds remaining.
Whereas the way this program is set up now through Zoom, residents don't have a face and they don't really get a voice on equal level standing of a developer who has three people on the Zoom when residents get none. And if this is deferred, I applaud that and I hope it is, but otherwise, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Ginger?
If anyone else would like to speak in public comment on the Zoom application, please raise your hand. I see no hands raised in the Zoom application at this time.
And how am I checking with Brittany?
Mayor, there are no public commenters that have expressed interest.
Thank you. All right, with that concludes public comment, and we move on to proclamation.
Ms. Mayor and Council, it's my pleasure tonight to be here with our retired officer, J.B. Tate, to present him in person this proclamation. I appreciate Mayor Deutsch, who was the one who said, hey, let's do this for Officer Tate. And she recognized his hard work and effort while he was here at Dunwoody. And I want to thank you for that, for sure. I've known JB for a lot of years, over 30 years. And when we were forming the Dunwoody Police Department and he showed an interest, I was excited that he had decided that he wanted to come to Dunwoody. And not only did he come to the Dunwoody Police Department, one of our original hires, he also did a fantastic job while he was here. You can probably go in the areas that he worked, and there's many businesses and schools and residents that know him by his name and by his actions. He did a great job while he was here and brought forth several initiatives that our department got involved in. And some of that's going to be in the proclamation tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas Officer J.B. Tate has served with honor and distinction as a police officer with the Dunwoody Police Department since March 16, 2009. And whereas he served in various challenging positions with the Marietta Police Department, the Paulding County Marshal's Office, and the Dunwoody Police Department during his 31 years of service. And whereas Officer J.B. Tate was one of the original hires of Chief Billy Grogan during the startup of the Dunwoody Police Department, and whereas he was one of the founders of the Dunwoody Police Department's Child Safety Seat Check Program, and whereas over 2,000 car seats have been checked, saving the lives of our youngest population and preventing injuries, and whereas Officer J.B. Tate established the SAFE program at the Kingswood United Methodist Church School, where he taught thousands of children since 2012. And whereas he spearheaded the effort in 2016 to establish a memorial celebrating the life of DeKalb County Police Officer Thomas Atkinson, who died in the line of duty in Dunwoody in 1976. And whereas Officer J.B. Tate led the effort in 2018 to raise $1,000 to have our department's name permanently etched into the National Law Enforcement Museum in Washington, D.C., and whereas he initiated the fundraising efforts to provide monetary relief to Panama City Beach police officers who were displaced by Hurricane Michael in 2018, over $4,000 was donated. And whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that gratitude be expressed for the hard work and often unheralded contributions made by Officer J.B. Tate during his almost 12 years with the department, and whereas his compassionate service and loyalty to the citizens of Dunwoody created a lasting bond with the community that will be missed. And whereas Officer J.B. Tate retired on Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020, after 31 years of law enforcement service, including almost 12 years of service to the city of Dunwoody. Now, therefore, I, Lynn Deutsch, Mayor of Dunwoody, do hereby proclaim January 25th, 2021 as Officer J.B. Tate Day in honor of his commitment and dedication to the welfare of the citizens of the city of Dunwoody. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Dunwoody to be affixed this 25th day of January, 2021. Congratulations, JB.
Officer Tate, before you step away, this is the mayor, and on behalf of City Council, we're very sorry we could not celebrate your retirement appropriately. And when the pandemic is over, we owe you lunch.
I understand.
So,
I want to thank the city of Dunwoody, the council, for all the support you've given us over the years. In my 31 years of policing, I never experienced such support from the city council and the citizens and the business owners as well. There's not a day I didn't go out on patrol and someone would stop and say, thank you for being here. And it meant a lot to us. We do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
thank you very much. You have left quite a legacy in programs, and we appreciate your service and enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
Next up is Michael Cowan from the Nature Center. Ginger, I imagine you might, oh no, he's here already. So Michael, if you can unmute. Here you go.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah. All right, so first I just want to start out by thanking you, both the City Council and the whole community, for allowing the Nature Center to really be a part of the community. We really do love Dunwoody, we love giving back to it, and we love serving it. And so while I can't be there to hug you in person tonight, please take the sentiment of me hugging this tree as a worthy substitute. So I wanted to start out tonight just by going over our financials. First off, as you can see from this graph, our financials are sound, so they have been for a while, so they're pretty solid. We routinely get over 60% of our income from programs, and that's a gold standard in the nonprofit industry. So even with COVID last year, we did have a solid year. However, all of our operations were obviously impacted by COVID. Q2 most severely, but ongoing, we're still seeing the challenges from that. So if you look at this chart, it actually shows a year over year by quarter analysis of the income broken out by donations, our rental program, and then our programs themselves, and then other. And just to highlight a few of the main things that you'll see, we were most severely impacted, as was the world, with the Q2 cancellations and the shutdown last year. We actually had negative programming income. You can barely see it on this chart, but we had negative because we reimbursed a lot of the program fees that were given in the first quarter. So, but almost everything was shut down from that perspective. Our rentals were obviously reduced, and they're we're still seeing the ongoing impacts of that. We're not able to have as large a crowds as we used to have, and we have to limit the amount of food and programming that can be done from that perspective. We haven't had a single field trip, a big field trip from a school come in since the early last March, and that's usually a historical solid piece of our revenue stream. And then our summer camp, even though we're allowed to have it, we were not allowed to have the portion that we host out at the National Park Service at the Island Ford Center, and that impacted us from a financial perspective. And then all of our other programs have been impacted in some way, from the size to where we can have them. So it has been a significant impact. So while I say it's sound and it's solid, we were able to be successful, but it wasn't without challenges. And I want to point out, you can really see the big glaring yellow dot in Q2 of last year, or part of the bar in Q2. That represents the PPP loan and grant that we were able to get. So I already told you we had negative programming income for that time frame, but you can look at the impact of getting the PPP grant, and that actually allowed us to continue with our staff planning, and that was really the big reason why we were able to open up with summer camp when we were able to do it right on time last year. So from a financial perspective, that really gives you the story. So I promised Brent that this presentation wouldn't be more than 10 minutes. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the areas of our Nature Center programming that we could highlight what we've done last year and some of the things for this year. So what we have found, and what we always knew, obviously, was nature is the safest place to be, especially in the midst of a pandemic. And we found a lot of people retreat to the Nature Center and to retreat to our parks, just as a lot of parks saw throughout the country. But it helped a lot of our programming stay alive. So the youth programming has always been the bread and butter of what we have done. The camp program produces the lion's share of our income year in and year out. And so we were able to have all 12 weeks of summer camp last year. We opened up right after the governor allowed it, and that was right on time when we were planning to. And even though we saw a lot of cancellations, we also saw a lot of people, new people coming in and signing on, and it was very successful. We never had a single COVID event in all of last year from our camp program, so we're very thankful for that. Our field trips, as I said, we haven't had a single one, big one from the schools since March. That is one of the ways that we serve the community, because over 50% historically of our field trips are coming from Title I schools. So where we actually give financial support for them to come. So we have not been able to do that. But we are still able to have scout programs for merit badges to other programs like our Mommy and Me classes will start back up this spring. So our youth programming has and always will be the core of what we've done, and we hope to continue that into the future. The adult programming, we actually started some new things last year, and we're hoping to continue and even grow on that this year. In the fall, we started an OWLS program. So it's really a lecture series with nature well-being sessions in the afternoon we had, and then some academic programs or lectures in the morning. You can see from that picture in the middle, we were able to limit the class size and have it outside where people were able to be spread out and get enriched and enjoy nature. So that was successful, and we want to continue doing that and even enhancing it going forward. Our Forest Steward program, we advertised that at the beginning of this year. It's actually going to be a give back program. It's an annual year-long program where we're actually going to teach people all the benefits of being in the forest and help them learn what is native and what isn't. And then the forest stewards will actually help us lead other volunteer groups in removing invasives and even delivering programs in the future. We also started a beekeeping club last year, which we were actually very successful. We continued that on through COVID, even through most of them were through Zoom, but that was something that we also thought was successful. Our volunteer programs, that's something that we partnered with the city on. And this year officially the city is actually helping us sponsor the first and second Saturday volunteer programs. But we started that as a routine way for our area high school kids who needed volunteer service hours to be able to get that at home without traveling many distances away to get it. So we started that in 2018 or 2019 and continued it last year. And what we found this year, though, is we had a lot of families come who just wanted to get outside. We had a lot of just other friend base who wanted to come. And we saw a culmination of those efforts really last week with our MLK Day. So in January, we don't do it on the second Saturday, we do it on MLK Day. But we had over 180 people actually spread here throughout the park from the back to the front, actually helping us make the park better for all of the citizens. Our scout projects, from Eagle Scouts to other Girl Scout projects, that has been a major success of what we've had. We've actually refurbished a lot of our trails and put in actually the beehives that you saw. On the corporate side, that has been an area where we've actually been severely impacted with COVID. We have only had, since the beginning of March, 3 corporate groups come, whereas normally we'll have well over 30 of those. And so that has been a huge source of volunteer hours that we haven't been able to get this year. And so thank goodness we're able to make up some of that with the increased numbers that we've seen on the Saturday sessions. But we intend to continue all of those efforts, and from an environmental education standpoint, being a premier place in the metro area for people to receive that education. From a facility standpoint, we really do think that we've had something to buzz about over the last year. So again, from a grounds perspective, we were awarded in September our 3rd National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant. And this one, the scope of it is to actually allow us to pay professionals, along with volunteers, to remove all of the invasive species on all 22 acres of our property. So from the English ivy, which you've heard me talk about before, to the wisteria, to the monkey grass, hopefully at the end of this year and the beginning of next year, all of that will be eradicated from our park. And we can use that as an example that'll refurbish the ground so that nature can restore itself, and what you'll see is the native plants come back. From the trail enhancement standpoint, I mentioned the Eagle Scout projects. We were able to open the new Eagle Trail, which has a walking entrance from Roberts Drive. If you take that, it will go all the way down to Wildcat Creek, and you can cross over the bridge and then go into the back area. So some of that was new trail that was cut. Some of it was just refurbished trail, but then the Eagle Scouts actually helped us remove the invasive species on each side of that property. And at the end of last year, we were actually named, especially the area around Wildcat Creek, part of the Old Growth Forest Network. And you'll get more information on that. We're hoping to celebrate that this year with our Arbor Day celebration. And from the pollinator projects, we have a long-standing history of really supporting pollinator protection projects, from our milkweed projects to how we celebrated at Monarchs and Margaritas. But we instituted new beehives this year, and we painted them. Those were put in April. They're much more visible, and they draw a lot more attention. So that's something we want to continue. And then the observation hive is one of the things that will go in later this spring. The pavilion has already been built, and you'll see the bees coming in a few months. So from a building perspective, we began last year after a little over 2 years of really construction fatigue with the school, with the entrance, with our own project with the Crane Eco Classroom. But we dedicated the Crane Classroom at the beginning of last year, and all of the construction fatigue really kind of went away. So we had a beautiful year, and it was actually a beautiful spring, even with COVID. And then in April, we also dedicated the green roof. So for 10 months out of the year, you actually see native plants blooming on top of that roof. So it helps us highlight the benefits of the native plants, and then also help the pollinators that are there. But it also allows us to talk about the adverse effect of pervious structures, whether it's pavement or roof, that you see in a lot of areas. And then the pavilion enhancements that y'all gave us the go ahead to proceed with late last year. We do have the city permit. We're just waiting on the county sewer approval to get that done. But when that is done, you'll see that building actually, that's one of our big improvements that you'll see this year. So from a future needs perspective, I don't want you to think that the picture is all rosy. We still have significant needs, particularly for upgraded classroom and high quality classroom space. We as a board are updating our master plan. And while we realize the significant impact that COVID has had on the city budget, and particularly the hotel motel tax opportunities that were there, we do still anticipate needing future funding to build a nature center that we can all be proud of. So we will come back to you on that. And then finally, from a community standpoint, part of our mission, or the main part of our mission, is to inspire a love of nature. And we are very proud to be that part of the community that does that. And we feel what we are able to do from all of these perspectives is really to be a community gem and to serve the community. And I don't think you could envision that any more than what we did this year with the Butterfly Festival. So for 27 years now, we have offered this as a gift to the community. We don't make a lot of money on this. We just try not to lose money. But routinely we'd have over 3,000 people in the park just enjoying the butterflies up close and personal and enjoying the festival. So obviously we weren't able to do that as normal this year, but we still wanted to find a way to do that so that everybody, kids of all ages, could come and enjoy it. So we spread it out over 8 days. We had time sessions and we had limited numbers. We put the butterfly tent in the pavilion under lock and key so that butterflies couldn't escape. And we're able to pull it off. And we do think we offered the another great opportunity for the community to come and learn about nature and enjoy it. So we are going to take what we learned this year and incorporate it into the Butterfly Festival going forward. So we had a lot of people tell us they liked some aspects of this better than what we had before. So look for a new and refurbished Butterfly Festival that might incorporate some of those same things, the successful things that you saw last year, this year. And it really amazes me the number of people that we have come to the Nature Center, either for a program or for somebody else's event, that'll tell us they lived in Dunwoody for however many years and that they never knew that the Nature Center or the park itself was back here. They driven by it on Roberts Road, but they'd never been down there. And so we definitely want to change that, and we want everybody to know. And so you're going to see some campaigns coming up about the unique rental space that we have in the pavilion, but we do feel that's a way to give back. So for all except for the dead of winter, you can be in that building and look out and think you're up in the mountains or in the midst of a wilderness. You can't see a single other building. So that is great, and we are able to earn program income for that we can plow back into our programs. So finally, what we saw this year, I don't think, and we don't have a way to really count the number of people that come, but I don't think we saw a reduction from a COVID perspective in the number of people that came and enjoyed the Nature Center itself and the park. I think we actually had an increase. And what we saw, especially starting in Q2 and continuing, is people retreating onto our trails and onto the facilities that we have to be in nature either by themselves or as a safe gathering place for their family and friends. And so we are very happy that we were able to have that impact on the community, and it's something that we definitely want to continue as we keep curing nature deficit disorder for both kids and kids of all ages, young and old. So with that, wanted to see if anybody had time for some questions.
Yes, I had to find my unmute button. Michael, nice presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. I have a quick question, Lynn.
Okay, Stacey.
Michael, actually, it's kind of two questions. One, with the Lowlands Boardwalk, I know that was closed for a while and now it's open again. What was done there?
So that was put in, I want to say, almost over 20 years ago as a volunteer effort. The wood just rotted out underneath, so we actually had to go in and, I guess, put new boards where it had rotted, and then put back on top the actual walkway structure. So that was what was done. That is a Band-Aid, though. I think longer term, that whole boardwalk needs to be replaced. It's just too low it's too low in that area because it floods out, and that was the reason for the rotting in the first place. But that was what was done. It was just to make it safe to walk on, but it isn't a long-term fix.
And then I was actually walking there this weekend. It was beautiful, and the park was crowded. It was lovely. Did you guys get a lot of trees down with the fall storms? Or
Yeah,
was
we
that-
actually lost, I forgot what day it was, but I was there that next day. We lost 8 big trees.
It's okay.
I didn't count the little ones, but I know the 8 big ones that we actually had to have crews come and cut. It was very significant.
Okay. It looks great. I love going and walking, and it is such a gem in our community. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Joe?
Yeah, Michael, great presentation. Nicely put together. Thank you so much. And thank you for everything you do as well. And I'm looking forward to getting beyond COVID. One specific one about the pollinators and plant pollinators, because we've got that bee Dunwoody. So there's a website, beedunwoody.org. Do you envision helping people if you want to buy some pollinators? Help? I know we've done that in the past. Do you envision doing any of that to help folks when it comes to planting season in the next couple months of helping them buy and sell and buy some pollinators and stuff and help that in the city?
Yep. So when you say pollinators, I'm assuming you mean the pollinating plants.
I'm sorry. I'm not
We're not going to sell
I'd like
bees.
to buy
but-
a bee. I'll buy a bee, please.
Well, there's actually a big market for that. But yes, I'm not ready to announce it, but we are actually working even with a local retailer and a partner with that where we can have, and we did last year at the Butterfly Festival, even though it's a horrible time to plant in August, we offered some native plants and we had to restock it 3 times. So I do think there's a benefit there. So yes, look for an announcement soon where I think in Dunwoody you'll have a place to go and routinely buy native plants.
Great. Thank you. Awesome.
Anybody else?
No, just great job. Good job, Michael, as always. Wonderful.
Thank you. And I think over the course of the year, all of you have been out to volunteer. So we always appreciate that.
Great. All right. Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. There's only 2 items on it. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
Move to approve.
Moved by
Second.
John, second by Jim. Any further discussion? I just want to highlight that we are allocating additional funds for some of the businesses that didn't get approved in time to be on the LAC list 2 weeks ago. And so I'm excited that some other businesses are getting much needed funds, and we look forward to awarding more in the future. Any other questions or comments? John?
Yeah, just a quick comment that I've had a couple of businesses reach out to me requiring or inquiring as to where the funding was or whether the stage is for the first round of the CARES grant. And I talked to Michael Starling, and he said he's hoping that checks will be cut today, or I'm sorry, this week, for the first round to be going out. So the businesses are looking forward to the next steps, and I think the funding's coming soon.
Right. Anything else? All right. Seeing no further discussion, I call the question. All in favor signify by raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously, Sharon. All right. I think Sharon has to read the next items.
Item number 7 is the second read of ordinance for RZ 20-03 for 84 Perimeter Center East rezoning from the current C1 conditional commercial district to PC2 Perimeter Center District. Richard Hathcock.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. On this item here, the applicant has requested deferral until February 22nd on the rezoning and all 4 SLUPs at this time.
Move to defer till the February 22nd meeting.
Second. Point of information.
Yeah, 1 second. Wait 1 second. I had a blip when Richard started talking. Did everybody else hear him from the very beginning? Or
Yes.
does he need to repeat? Okay, you did. Okay, it's just me. All right, there's a motion and a second, moved by Joe, second by Jim. John has a question.
Do we need to do all of these second reads tonight in order to make this an official second read? Or are we deferring the second read to a later date? If I could get clarification, please.
We are referring the second read until February 22nd.
22nd.
Okay, so the second read's not actually happening tonight then?
Correct.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I clarify.
And we have to do a motion for each of these, right? Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, deferral. Yes. Okay. All right. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I call the question, signify your support for the deferral by raising your hand. Aye. All right, Sharon, that's unanimous.
I'd like to. guess
Wait, I think she has to read it first.
Yeah, do number 8. Yeah.
Number 8 is a second read for SLUP 20-02A for 84 Perimeter Center East Special Land Use Permits to allow an exception to Section 27-104C, Figure 271043 for an increase in the maximum impervious coverage from 65% or 75% with semi-pervious cover to a total of 85% coverage of both impervious and semi-pervious coverage. Richard Hadcock.
Move to defer until February 22nd.
Second.
Sharon, that was moved by Jim and second by Joe. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I call the question, signify your support of the deferral by raising your hand or saying aye. Sharon, that was unanimous.
Mayor, number 9 is the second read for SLUP 20-02B for 84 Perimeter Center East Special Land Use Permit from Chapter 27, Section 27104F2 to allow residential use of age-restricted multifamily housing, Section 27104F2.
Move to defer until February 22nd.
Moved by Jim,
Second.
second by Pam. Y'all are mixing it up. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, I call the question, signify your support of the deferral by raising your hand. Sharon, that's unanimous.
Item number 10 is a second read for SLUP 20-02C for 84 Perimeter Center East to allow an exception to Section 27105B2 to reduce the required interior side yard setback from 15 feet to 0 feet and to reduce the rear yard setback of 30 feet to 10 feet.
Move to defer until February 22nd.
Moved by Jim,
Second.
second by Joe. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, signify your support by raising your hand. Sharon, that's unanimous.
Item number 11 is a second read for SLUP 20-2D for 84 Perimeter Center East to allow an exception to Section 27-105B2 to allow both residential and commercial uses at the street facing ground floor level for a horizontal length of 100 feet from the eastern facade of the multifamily building that will not be service or lobbies for lodging. The street facing ground level of the remainder of multifamily buildings shall contain active uses for a minimum depth of 10 feet.
Move to defer until February 22nd.
Second.
Moved by Jim, second by John. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing no, signify your support for the seeing none, signify your support for the deferral by raising your hand. Sharon, that's unanimous.
Mayor, the next item is under the discussion items. Number 12 is enhancements to Shambly Dunwoody Road Bridge over I-285. Michael Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As part of the Georgia DOT's 285 Managed Lane Project, they're planning to replace the Shambly Dunwoody Road Bridge over 285, which provides an opportunity for the city to work with the state and potentially add aesthetic treatments to the new bridge. The Managed Lane Project is also going to include some very long bridges on both sides of 285 beginning west of Shambly Dunwoody and extending to the other side of 400. So the city and the perimeter CID have an interest in what those bridges look like as well. And so we've partnered together to look at the area holistically. And we've contracted with Kimley Horn, who has experience going through this same process with the cities along the 400 managed lane project. And they're here tonight to provide some examples of bridges from around the country and design ideas for the council to consider. The primary focus for tonight is on the Shambly Dunwoody Bridge. And then the other bridges, we'll be working with the CID on those in the future, but we're starting with the Shambly Dunwoody Bridge, and I'll turn it over to Kimley Horn at this point.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Eric Bosman with Kimley Horn. I just want to reiterate a couple of points that Michael made, and then Winston Mitchell, our urban designer, is going to walk you through most of the illustrations this evening for the basis of our discussion. As Michael noted, really the core of our task is to come up with a series of design features that can not only be applied to Shambly Dunwoody Road Bridge, but also to each of the other bridge within the perimeter community and improvement district. So while each bridge may have a different combination of those kit of parts, we sort of want to establish one design aesthetic, one set of materials, one set of strategies and tactics that can be applied to all of these bridges so that when a motorist comes down 285 in the future, they will clearly be able to identify that they are within the Dunwoody and Perimeter Center area. So what Winston's going to do is walk you through sort of some case studies, some imagery from our Dunwoody Perimeter Center area to give you an idea of the types of materials and the design character that we're trying to fit this within. But ultimately, what we want to get from you this evening is sort of which pieces and parts are you most interested in prioritizing. We have not designed anything yet for these bridges and for these implementations. We sort of want to get an idea from you of what are the types of things that you would prioritize, what are the types of materials that will blend and fit with the area that we ought to take a first look at. And then we'll wrap up this discussion with just a little bit of an idea of budget too. We don't want to design a Mercedes if you're looking for a Honda. So we're going to talk a little bit about those three elements tonight. But to set that up, Winston's sort of going to walk you through the visual images, just point out some of those design factors that we're thinking about.
Thanks, Eric, and thank you to the council for allowing us to present to y'all tonight. First thing here, you'll see a graphic showing some of the bridges that would be getting rebuilt, and noticing that some of the bridges are going to get rebuilt by GDOT, but some of them are actually going to remain in place and will not really be touched by GDOT. So it's more a matter of what kind of enhancements can be done around them, maybe not necessarily fully integrated into them, as well as calling out this purple line showing there are going to be express ramps coming in, which are going to be elevated along the entire length of 285 here, which is important to some of the examples I want to go through. So the first thing that we did was we looked at some of the aesthetic enhancements and placemaking projects that are occurring around the country. Our first example is actually from Alpharetta, so not very far away. It's the Encore Parkway Bridge, which was built in 2015. Some of the things that were added to that bridge above and beyond what the minimums would have been are some of these stone treatments that you'll see along the side, which are actually a form liner that were then hand painted. Some columns that were added and rhythm that was actually added to this bridge by putting these columns and pylons in, as well as some different railings and shade structures and some ornamental lighting and some planters. There's also a new interstate being rebuilt in Orlando, the I-4 rebuild. As part of this project, there were actually large pylons that were integrated at some of the intersections. You can see here in this middle image how they look from the highway. They actually have lighting systems in them. There's retaining walls with planters integrated into the walls. And even attention was paid to the bents and the columns supporting some of the ramps to really create a holistic sense of place. And then finally, the last example is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And what was done here was some enhancements to the columns and bridge vents to give a really unique character that tied together with some of the Germanic architecture that historically you find throughout the city. And so what this has really done is elevated all of these different projects in different ways to really create a high level of design within the city. The next set of examples that we wanted to share were all from the state of Texas, which is really doing some of the most innovative and far-reaching work of this type. We all know Texas has a lot of freeways. So the first example is the Chisholm Trail Parkway in Fort Worth. Some of the things that they did there were, again, very ornamental bridge railings, some really nice plantings that were integrated into the retaining walls, some monumentation at the entrances of the bridges, as well as these monuments in the middle, which actually have public art reflecting native bird species put into them, and again, a high level of design for the bridge vents. In El Paso, there are some highway projects that have integrated some kinetic art structures, so they actually move during the day and they light up at night. They have some ornamental walls, and then of course some of the design motifs that they've added in really give it some southwestern flair to really reflect some of the architecture of the community. And finally, Highway 75 in Dallas. Here you can see some of the painted columns. They actually have some lighting elements at night, so these stars, some of them light up. And then all of the walls and columns and signage were integrated to be one cohesive design. And so the real question about that is, what does this have to do with 285? And what they all do is they create a strong sense of place that really reflects the design and character of the place in which they're found. And so the first thing we wanted to look at was looking at what types of design are found in the Dunwoody area and around the perimeter. And so some of the biggest things that we found was there's really a wide mix of contemporary and classic design. So a lot of concrete elements, some stucco at some of the strip mall developments, but also a lot of granite walls, some brick pavers, stacked stone. Of course, there's the farmhouse, but then you've got elements such as a Starbucks, which is very, very modern. So it's a little bit eclectic and really spans the gamut. As we get into the business district around the perimeter, what really stands out is there's a really strong emphasis to contemporary design. So there's a lot of glass and steel, concrete. So a lot of geometric shapes, very strong, clean lines. There's actually a very strong sense of place that this area is very unique within the greater Atlanta area. But the other overarching thing that you'll find throughout the whole area is a lot of greenery. You can't go anywhere without seeing all of the trees and an integration, even here in the State Farm campus, of these boulders and nature sort of being brought back into the space. So another thing we wanted to look at were the different components of the bridges and placemaking that could really be focused on as part of this effort. And we really wanted to see what kind of design components that you all were most interested in seeing. So one aspect is the bridge vents. So that goes from the column to the supports and the beams under the bridge. You can do rustications to create rhythms or paint design motifs, even down to just retrofitting existing bridges with paint and some aesthetic enhancements to really give it some new energy. There's also bridge barriers and railings. You can see this bridge is actually from the connector in Atlanta, the Encore Parkway, and then here we've got a very strong geometric bridge barrier from the Chisholm Trail Parkway, and then also retaining walls. So there's a lot of things you can do, whether it's a contemporary design or more traditional and classical granite block walls, or you can even integrate designs and motifs into the walls. You can also focus on monumentation, whether it's public art, large pylons that are integrated into the bridge, or even steel arches, such as the Peachtree Street Bridge. And then we can also integrate items such as art and lighting, and then other elements such as the landscaping. You can really create something very unique with any of these combinations of elements. And so that brings us finally to what types of character and materials that you would really like to see in Dunwoody. So what we want to know is, are there specific aspects of the bridges that you think are most important to focus on or not focus on? Or if there are even types of materials or design motifs, whether it's more contemporary, more modern, or more traditional. You know, there's really, you can go in any direction because all of these different elements are found within your community.
And to Winston's point, I mean, we're not starting with a blank slate on 285. We're going to be handed a set of bridge drawings for what GDOT is going to do, and then be looking for ways to enhance those bridges. But as Winston said, before we went off and developed a bunch of concepts that may or may not have been within the realm of what you're thinking, we first sort of wanted to have this discussion of what is it that resonates with you? What is sort of your image for what you want the Shambly Dunwoody Bridge in particular to present to people that are crossing over it and under it, and sort of get your thoughts and direction a little bit so that we could come back to you in a month or two with some designs that are in keeping with your vision for what this might be. So Mayor, we might throw it back to you and let you open up the discussion with that, and we'll be happy to muse design-wise or answer questions or whatever's helpful to help council sort of illustrate their vision.
Sounds like a plan. I think the easiest way to do this, if it's okay with council, is for me just to call on y'all, and then y'all leave the presentation up in case people want to refer to it. And so I'll just go down the imaginary line, and I'll start with Tom Lambert. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. Eric, thank you for the presentation. And yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for us to, not only just as the bridges, but all of these bridges just happen to be gateways into the city as well. So it kind of dovetails nicely with that program that we're looking to do as well. So I would hope there would be some sort of coordination with the Gateway project and how that could fit into this. I also think there's some unique opportunities because of those overpasses with the managed lanes. I mean, this isn't just a standard bridge. What are those opportunities? Probably make it a little bit more challenging, but hopefully that might also present something a chance to do something unique and special there. Personally, just from my standpoint, I like the idea of incorporating some of that natural landscaping into the bridge. I think that's consistent with where we're going here, and hopefully as a way of enhancing the bridge without perhaps adding a lot of extra costs. I do like some of the again, this is just all personal stuff. I like the monument stuff and the lighting things, fixed components to it. And again, hopefully that's something that could be done at a relatively low cost as well. That doesn't have to be super grand to have an impact. And again, we're also starting to kick off our arts program, and perhaps there's ways to incorporate some public art as a part of this as well, and throwing it all together. But I like the idea that this is being looked at. I know that, as you said, it's not a blank slate because it's got to kind of fit into what GDOT's going to provide us as the foundation. But I look forward to what you guys can come up with. But those are just my thoughts as a starting point. Thanks.
Jim?
So
I'm an engineer by temperament and education, so I try to stay out of making aesthetic judgments and hire people who are a lot better at it than me to be involved in that. And I don't have a lot of input for you there, team. The one comment I do have that I'm, just to caution you to make sure you take a hard look at as you get going on this, and that's the fact that we've got this Shambly Dunwoody Bridge that we'd like to jazz up, but we've also got these managed lanes on pylons. And if we jazz it up, but nobody ever sees it because it's hidden by all the managed lanes, then, maybe we should have spent more of our effort on jazzing up the pylons and the managed lane walls and not the bridge itself. So, take a hard look at what our sight lines are going to be and who's going to be seeing what on the front end of this thing, and use that to guide your your process would be my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, council member. I mean, we've been working on bridges up and down Georgia 400, and we've never really had to think about the bridge supports that much before, but those are going to be very apparent on this stretch of 285.
Pam?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. This is exciting. Again, my feel is the lighting, and to piggyback on what Jim said, where you have the areas that, you know, a monument or public art would not work, lights will work, maybe. And with lighting, it can change. It can change maybe for the season or the holiday. So it could, you know, end up being a little different, but, you know, stay, you know, lighting, people love lights. And then also Dunwoody, we have this park walkability connectivity theme to us. So if the bridges could have that feel of a belt line, but obviously it's a highway and it's a bridge, but if it can have like the pavers or the clean lines and like what Tom said, you know, plantings and natural habitat type features, that would be amazing. And then going back to the public art, obviously where there are places that can be seen. Yes, I love public art. It's so much fun. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Stacy?
I guess I'd like to start with a couple of questions about the process, just so I understand it a little bit more. GDOT is going to give us a bridge. So one thing that we've kind of talked about is the supports are going to be very apparent on 285. Do we have any say on the supports that they give us?
Probably not. Not on the shape or form of them. What we've initially talked about is whether we would be able to do something like a reveal or a stamp or something that could be put into the concrete, whether it's just stamped into the concrete or whether we try to add and apply some color to it. They're not crazy about that idea, but they're open to it.
Okay. So then my next question is, City of Dunwoody is solely responsible for the Shambly Dunwoody Bridge, or is PCID helping us with that?
Essentially, the city on Shambly Dunwoody, PCID on the other two bridges, and the goal is just to create something that can work together so that it reads as one set of bridges rather than a series of different things.
Okay. Then my next question is, we've all talked that we would love to have some public art in it, and I concur with that. Is that something that has to be pre-planned, or can it be a placeholder and say, this is where we want to do public art, and then hopefully have somebody who would come in and help us with that cost?
Yes, so that the latter that you mentioned is exactly what we did in the Aerotropolis area. As part of the Camp Creek Bridge Diverging Diamond, we created 2 platforms for public art to go in the future. That makes GDOT really happy when we don't include the public art in their project, and then come back later and the public art can be added by the local participants onto those platforms. So that is an option if we can find or create the space for that to happen.
Gotcha. Okay, and then my next question is, you're kind of asking us, you know, if we want a Mercedes design or a Honda design or a Tesla or, you know, a Yugo. What is the cost differential? Like, is it 10 million? Is it 2 million? Is it 200,000? I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, so the best examples we can give you, the Encore Bridge, that was the very first example that Winston showed with the hand-painted form liner. That was about $2.5 million that was added to that bridge. Now that included the walls, the custom fencing, the lighting, the landscaping on the bridge itself with irrigation. So that's a pretty full tilt application. That was about $2.5 million. The 14th Street Bridge, that is the green panels that were laser cut that Winston, I think you're showing on the fencing slide. We only spent about that was about $750,000. That included the fencing, the LED lights that do change colors in the towers, and a little bit of landscaping in the median. The reality is, once you start playing with the walls and the fencing, you're going to be somewhere in sort of that $500,000 neighborhood. Then if you're adding sidewalks and other features, you can easily get up to $1 million. And then lighting is sort of that next level cost. Lighting is expensive. And on many of the bridges that we work, the lighting makes up about 25 to 35% of the budget.
Okay.
So anywhere from $500,000 to $2 to $2.5 million. Is
Okay,
sort of
so and
what we've
just to make sure I understand this, GDOT is putting on, when they redo the bridge, they're giving us the same number of lanes, a sidewalk on the east side and a multi-use path on the west side. Is that correct? Like that is included in the cost?
Michael Smith may have to verify the exact pieces, but that's my understanding.
Yes, the GDOT is committed to do the path and the sidewalk and the lane.
Is they going to put in a separation of the path from the car traffic lanes?
We've talked about a landscape buffer. It's still up in the air as what the expectation of who pays for that. But the good thing is their bridge width, I think, can accommodate that. It's just if you actually add like a raised planter bed or something, that adds weight to the bridge, and they would have to design for that. And it hasn't been established who would pay for that extra cost, but I'm thinking they're probably going to ask us to pay for it.
Okay.
But the path and sidewalk, that's all in their project. It would only be if we want to add a landscape planner and any of this other stuff.
Well, and I would add that we've worked on a few projects like this recently, and that generally has been GDOT's approach, is that they pay for the minimum of what they would build, and then any enhancements above and beyond that it would be expected. The city or the CID would pay for that. So, you know, if a beam had to be enlarged for enhanced weight, then they would look at the differential between the cost for the beam they would have used versus the thicker beam, and then that differential gets added into the cost of what would have to be borne by the city.
Okay. So I guess I would argue with them that, you know, a separation between a multi-use path and traffic is a necessity for a new bridge in the 21st century, but I'll let you argue that, Michael. So, and I guess the other things that I'm hearing about are the cost is decorating the support, because GDOT's going to give us the supports on 285. And so how we want to make that aesthetically more pleasing is one cost. The fencing on the bridge and how fancy we make that with the lighting, or the fencing is another cost. And then the lighting, and that lighting can really jack up the price. Do I have that all correct?
That's pretty fair. Yep.
Okay. Okay. I just had a lot of questions. I'm not quite sure I have an opinion yet, other than like, I don't know if I want to go for the Tesla Mercedes 2.5 million, but we certainly need to do better than what GDOT's going to give us. And I would certainly say that we have to have something to separate the multi-use from the traffic, just to promote the connectivity that we want. Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for answering all my questions.
Joe.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. So yeah, where we really are, you know, you're asking us for design guidance. We're constrained around some type of timeline, deadlines with GDOT, and then a budget, and then we're looking at funding. So I'm a little hybrid, like what Jim mentioned with engineering, et cetera. I posed this question to our newly engaged Public Arts Commission. Could we ask them to provide their guideline, you know, ask them to provide their feedback on design preferences? Yeah, we understand the budget constraints, but I'd like to open that up back to Michael Starling's team of our new Public Arts Commission to ask them to provide feedback. And Michael Smith, I know you mentioned that I asked you the deadline. You said when do we need to really come back to say, well, here's generally speaking what we'd like to get to GDOT? What can we do we have sort of a date, Michael?
They're expecting us to get back with them in the next couple of months with what our plan is. It's a little bit of a moving deadline because this This project was originally, they were going to advance it ahead of the managed lanes. They're still hoping to do that, but it's a possibility it's going to get pushed back into the overall bigger project. But as long as they're continuing to try to advance this one forward, they really want to hear back from us in the next couple of months.
Right. I'm just if we go back to say, okay, do we the takeaway, the deliverable right now tonight, or, you know, if we got another, you know, couple of weeks or, you know, a little bit iteratively to give you a little bit more guidance, which would be, you know, the leeway there. And then the budget, I know you dropped me a note as well. I'm always one to just ask, and all they can do is say no, right? Because I asked about, is there legality, any legal prevention from GDOT using GDOT funds to do, you know, some of these enhancements, right? But yeah, I understand what normal practice has been, but I definitely need to look at where are these funds coming from? If no matter what we do, we all know about that. We've got a retreat coming up, hopefully here in the next few months. You mentioned about some type of an infrastructure bank loan, other funds. Because obviously I'd like to know if we're going to go up on that higher number, obviously we need to come up with where we're going to be funding it from.
Yeah, I'll ask Eric or Winston if they, from their past experience, if they're familiar with any funding sources for this type of work.
Michael, you're kind of coming in and out on your, I don't know if it's, I hope it's not just me, but you're kind of wavering in and out. So just.
Yeah, I think, Michael, you're asking, are we aware of any other funding sources for some of the previous bridges that have been enhanced? It's been a pretty wide collection. There were a series of bridges that we worked on in Midtown that did include some bond funding from the state as part of a larger transportation package. There are a couple areas in the region that have been able to obtain and use, I believe they were GDOT gateway grants that were somewhere on the order of, you know, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to help offset some of the costs. The CIDs have been involved in a majority of these efforts. So I think the most significant funding pot for the bridge enhancements have been CID funds.
Right. I think for a separate session of just walking through what budget funding sources would be for this, what even SPLOST or what have you. So I'll throw out some ideas about my design guidelines as well. I like definitely the buffer. I like the one on Encore Parkway with that lovely buffered green vegetated with the raised brick there. That's a great separation. So separation. And I like the covering area. Well, if that's really functional, you know, I love aesthetics, but I also like function because it's so hot in the summer and you're walking across that or going across. So, right, any kind of thing that can provide natural shade. We're not going to retrofit the Fifth Street Bridge connector downtown where that was really, they added on another deck. What was that, like $20 million? I mean, it was a crazy number, right? But that was like, wow, because they actually made a garden on there and you have this place to hang out at. But any kind of, I'm looking at the at-grade experience for the person. I want a safe design, the multi-use path connectivity through the way, you know, it's safe, they feel comfortable. It's the opposite of, say, walking through the middle of a DDI, you know? That's the end state for me. You know, the experience of that. And then I need to see visually what this looks like. If we have a managed lane, they're actually going to be above the deck. There's going to be, so we're saying we've got a bridge and then above that, the managed lanes are going to be, correct?
Not at Shambly Dunwoody. Those bridges will start west of Shambly Dunwoody, but they will be going over Ashford Dunwoody and Perimeter Center Parkway.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So at least on Shambly Dunwoody, we're seeing the sky.
Yes.
Looking up. Thanks. I'm just getting my perspective on the thing, right? And then I would focus on the at-grade experience of the people going across as priority one. This is just me. And then the priority number two is, sure, if you're down on 285, you're passing through. Do you know you're in Dunwoody? Is there some kind of gateway, whatever, you know, yada, yada, whatever. But again, I didn't come up with any kind of, you know, specific idea. But I do like the landscape buffer. And I'd like to engage our Public Arts Commission to give some input And then somebody come up with here's three design concepts, and here's what those budgets items would be. You guys come up with the budget number to us, give us three different numbers, low, medium, high, and then we're like, okay, and then have a conversation and figure out which way we want to go. So, but anyway, that's what I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. John.
Thanks, Eric, for your presentation. I think Joe hit on one of the things that I really want to talk about, and that's functionability. I want to get as many people across that bridge as efficiently as possible, and that's including the trail, including pedestrians. Michael, do we have a circle around from Cotillion to Savoy? If both those thoroughfares are going to be one way, is there going to be a dedicated circle going from one to the other?
Yes, I think originally it was a separate bridge right beside the Shambly Dunwoody Bridge. They may have put it all into one structure now, but it will be on that side. You'll have a sidewalk, and then you'll actually have a barrier and a fence or rail that separates the sidewalk from that wraparound lane.
Okay.
It'll be very similar. I don't know if you've seen like down in the Shallowford, Shambly Tucker area.
Yeah, no, I'm well aware of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be like that. How it'll be separated from the main bridge.
Okay, so you're going to have that aesthetically pleasing as well, or aesthetically close to the other two that the PCID is going to be working on, the other two bridges that are going to be retrofitted. Is there any thought, Michael, in the sense of a future diverging diamond on Shambly Dunwoody?
No, there's no plans or hasn't been any discussion of that.
Would it have to be built in order to allow that? It seems to be the standard. More and more of those are going in. I've seen them in other locations around Atlanta. Would it have to be retrofitted? I mean, would the bridge that is put in, would it have to be built in such a way in which to possibly allow that in the future? Or is that just a major change to be thought of later?
We can ask GDOT as part of their traffic analysis, if they looked at that or considered that, or will look at that.
Okay. Again, aesthetics are important, and I think the PCID is going to do a wonderful job. They have two bridges to redo, and I trust their judgment in the sense of their bridges are already in place, and they're just going to make them aesthetically pleasing or different. I would be okay looking at their it's going to be very pleasing and pretty cost effective. So I would be okay looking at what they have and just going with that. But that being said, I'm also worried about the aesthetics of the sound walls. Eric, have they made the sound walls that go along 285? Have those been decided in the designs of those yet?
We have not seen design for those yet, so I'm not sure.
You know, I'd hate to clash.
I don't want to interrupt, but February 22nd, I think, right, Michael?
Yes.
It's our hope that we're going to have GDOT representatives to talk about the lanes, the sound walls, timing, et cetera, et cetera. So just put that on your calendar.
Okay, well, again, I think that's an important aesthetic or quality of life issue that needs to be talked about, as well as what a bridge looks like. You know, I wouldn't want those to clash with the sound walls. I'm fine with whatever the bridge. Everybody has some great talking points regarding separation and quality of the bridge itself, and I'm just worried about the functionality of it. And I would be fine trusting Ann Hanlon and the other PCID members that I know they're going to be redoing their two bridges, and I'm sure it's going to look great. And I would just piggyback on what some of their designs, maybe with some minor tweaks, but I'm more worried about functionality. Thank you.
The standard on the sound wall that was established as part of the 400-285 project is the kind of stone looking, it's a grayish stamped concrete stone look that they're putting in as part of 400-285. And I think unless we and the CID told them otherwise, that would be the standard for everything else through this area on the future project.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And one final point, as far as aesthetics are concerned, I know the PCID, I believe they do a good job monitoring and putting a little extra funds into the on-ramps and exit ramps, removing signs and things of that nature. And I think we could do a better job of doing that type of work on our on-ramps and off-ramps that we, the city of Dunwoody, along with GDOT, have some responsibility for. So again, it's a big project overall, but aesthetics, there's a lot that goes into the aesthetics of looking what's going to represent Dunwoody. So thank you.
Okay, with that, Ann Hanlon, I think you're on our call. Maybe. I saw your name, but you might not be. Oh, her hand's up. Ann, are you there? I think you unmuted yourself.
Yes. Hi, Mayor. I'm here.
Hi. I was hoping maybe you could give us an update without any warning of where y'all are and what you're thinking. Just if you're not, that's fine. Just anyway, go ahead.
Sure. And my apologies. I cannot figure out how to turn my camera on.
That's okay. We can still hear you.
Okay. Yes, we are having a CID board meeting actually on this Wednesday morning. Our board gave us, we're going to give them an update on Wednesday, but our board gave us the green light in November to move forward. Michael Smith has been really, really great about keeping us in the loop on his conversations with GDOT, because he, of course, really started this project talking about the Shambly Dunwoody Bridge and was nice enough to pull us in from the CID on the Perimeter Center Parkway Bridge and Ashford Dunwoody. So our board gave us the green light to partner with the city back in November. We did not have a board meeting in December, but we're going to give them an update in February, and we're excited about it. You know, they have a lot of similar questions our board members do, as many of the city council members have voiced, but we definitely want to work together with the city to kind of create a palette so that all those three bridges look nice, they'll stand the test of time, and they really create a good entryway into the city of Dunwoody.
Okay, but you haven't picked the palette or anything yet, right?
No. We haven't even started. This is really the first, tonight really is kind of the first presentation. Our board hasn't even seen this presentation yet.
Okay.
We wanted you guys to go first. As the city, of course, you'll be the official sponsor. So no, we haven't even gotten that far yet. But we know that now that we're started, we know that we need to keep an aggressive schedule, because UDOT's schedule is certainly so aggressive, and we know that we want it to fit within the timelines that they've given us.
Okay. So for me, so do you have an idea yet of what you intend to retrofit, if anything, on those bridges? On the two Dunwoody bridges that are in the PCID?
You know,
go ahead, Eric.
Well, I was just going to add, I mean, I think a lot of the different elements that we sort of outlined in this package is sort of the kit of parts that we get to work with: the walls, the fences, the ends, and then the lighting and the landscaping. I mean, those are and the lighting and the landscaping are more aggressive. Sort of the first thing we're able to look at and really take a standard GDOT package and enhance are the walls, the sidewalks, the fencing. I mean, that's sort of tier one.
Right. But my question wasn't what they could do. It was whether or not they had decided what they wanted to do. And I think the answer to that is no, right? Ann?
Right. Yeah. No, we have not.
So for me, one of my goals would be that there's a consistency in how it looks, so that the three are interconnected. They don't have to be identical, but that you feel like you're in one place when you do go through those under or over those three bridges. I'm concerned about budget, our budget maybe versus your budget, because we also maybe have some expenses you're not going to have, because we may have the pylons going up that is taking the lanes up if we decide, assuming they fall in Dunwoody and not the PCID. And so, but it sounds like you're just at the beginning, and I think we have to navigate this. We've had a great relationship, and I don't expect it to change, so that we can be respectful of budget. How's that?
Right. No, absolutely. I completely agree. And the three structures just in and of themselves are all very different. You know,
Right.
we're on the 285 corridor, we are, you know, not maybe as fortunate as some of the farther out suburban communities who have the opportunity to design brand new bridges, right? So
Right.
we're retrofitting them. And each of these three that we're talking about tonight are all very different structurally. So, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, we envision working hand in hand with the city, with Michael Smith and his staff, to make sure we have something that has a consistent look and feel, so that you have a sense of arrival for all three of these.
Right.
And also one other, you did not ask this, Mayor, but I'll just add, we have also not talked about budget with our board
Okay.
yet.
Okay. That's
So
good to
they're
know.
gonna have similar questions.
Okay.
What, can I add one thing too about the three bridges is that
Yes.
if money is, putting money aside, we kind of have a blank slate on Shambly Dunwoody because it'll be a new
Right.
bridge. At Ashford Dunwoody and Perimeter Center Parkway, there will be, some things would not be possible to do on those bridges, particularly if it adds weight, or they'll be very sensitive about adding weight to existing bridges.
Right.
So that, you know, we'll try to tie them all together, but those bridges we may be limited on some things.
And actually, I'm worried about PCID having more resources than we are. So I appreciate your comments, and so from a car in 285, presuming we discover that you're actually gonna be able to see the Shambly Dunwoody Bridge, to me, one of the important things is some kind of unifying fencing, I think, but also maybe something that says Dunwoody, like maybe literally says Dunwoody or something, and it can say perimeter. I don't know, because creativity is not necessarily my strong suit, but you know, I'd like to see us, as people approach the place, we tell them what it is, even if they're just driving through. And so, you know, I have thoughts on some of the designs, features you shared. I certainly appreciate the Encore Bridge. I think it turned out very attractive. If we have the resources, I think I don't know what you call it, the under the bridges parts, that makes an impact if it looks nicer. Y'all showed some examples in Texas, but that's a pretty common thing in a lot of the Texas cities, that they've done a nice job with their underpasses. That's what they're called, right?
Mhm.
And so I don't, you know, it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to look better. I suspect we may not have given you enough information to proceed. Is that an accurate assessment?
No, I think a lot of what we heard in terms of what's the feeling, what are the elements, the experience that you all want to prioritize, I think tells us a lot about what to focus on versus what not to focus on.
Okay.
It will be a little bit of an iterative, explorative process, but without getting too much into materials or colors, I do feel like we've learned quite a few things from this discussion that will help at least point us in the right direction.
Okay, so I like natural materials better than like steel, and obviously glass isn't going to be on a bridge, but well, I guess it could be. But I think it will be easier for us to give feedback on some actual designs, even if, you know, you bring 3 or 4 different versions, and like the eye doctor, which do you like better? But I do think, and that at least not only maybe the materials need to be similar or the same, but because I think we ought to have some and I'm just one vote, characteristic on the fencing, we probably need to work on that together too.
The one piece of information that I think we could use a little more guidance on is the budget. I mean, we'll look at all the options for trying to fund this, but I think we should probably assume that the city would have to provide the funding. And I mean, I think I'm hearing we're not going to go for the, you know, multi-million-dollar $2.5 million option, but if we are somewhere in the $500,000 to $1 million range, is that I mean, this money would have to come out of capital for the city, which is, you know, competing with a lot of other projects.
So I can't speak for everybody else, but it's really hard to know what we need to spend. Like, for example, the landscape buffer, versus kind of what we want to spend, because we have no idea what money buys in this case. And so if it's not too much trouble, and it may be, I mean, don't go crazy and spend zillions of dollars, but in the iteration process, either designs where we can remove or add. I used to play a game, SimCity, way back in the 1,000 years ago, and you would, this feature was this much, something along those lines might work the best for us. And then simultaneously working with the PCID, so we can make sure we're kind of on the same page, understanding that they're retrofitting, but we don't want to look like between Shambly, Dunwoody, and Ashford Dunwoody, you've transported yourself to a totally different place. So is it possible, Eric Bosman, to give us some flexibility with budgeting? And we haven't even had a discussion with our financial people to even understand how we would even pay for this.
Yes, I think the idea that we can come back with plus or minus 3 sort of concepts, and then have some pieces that you can add or subtract from each of those concepts. And I think you're right, Mayor, when you see them, it will be easier to decide, oh, well, if you take that part out, it really doesn't look like we want it to look anymore. So this concept doesn't work without that piece, and we'll be able to move more swiftly, I think.
Yeah, I think that works best for me. Does anybody on council have thoughts on this? And you'll have to just speak up, because at the moment I can't see you all.
Yeah, Lynn, it's like, I want to be as creative as possible. I want to get the high, medium, low, and then I want to come up with what are all the funding options,
Yeah.
not just from our operational capital, general capital funds.
Okay.
And as far as aesthetics, that's one thing. But again, if you're playing with the width of the bridge itself, just adding 3 feet, of a buffer on the bridge, and we are going to accept that cost, that's huge. So if there's a federal funding, or if there's some grant aspect for the trail or some way of funding, but if we're adding width to the bridge for landscaping or width to the bridge for buffering, that alone is going to be more than any aesthetic that you can even imagine.
Yeah, and based on previous experience, Councilman Hennigan, I think what's more likely to happen is GDOT is going to give us a width, and they may allow us to play with or work with some of the dimensions of the elements within that width, but they're probably going to set the width and not let us change it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And I know one of the questions was to, fund the design for the 19,000 from the budget and fund. I'm in favor of that. And I would also say whatever design that we do with the low, medium, and high, whatever, that placeholders for public art, I think, is something that I know I would like to see.
I think there's some consensus around that. Anybody else?
And again, if the PCID wants to name the bridges, downtown, they have Peachtree Dunwoody, or I'm sorry, Peachtree Road when you go under them. I'm not sure we want to go to that extreme to have the big white letters, but if the PCID had a way of naming or identifying each of those bridges differently, but yet being part of the PCID, again, I'm interested in hearing their thoughts on where they want to go from it. So,
Eric, are you doing the PCIDs too? Are y'all working on the bridges for them too?
Yeah, so this
Okay,
series
so-
of concept designs will be will be 3 to 4 bridges across the
Okay.
whole spectrum.
Okay. So a couple of up in the air questions, Michael, that I think we'll need information, Eric, and then we'll need information is when the one thing GDOT has done, I think, for me is connect the U-turn bridge, whatever you call it, the loop, at least build it simultaneously so the disruptions are less, maybe connect it. But we'll need to know, because if there's an interior fence, it needs to be attractive as well. And then is that what you call them, pylons, the things that are going to hold up, because both those impact budget. And so if we could, I know they're coming in a few weeks, if we can get as much information on those before y'all bring stuff back to us, so we can understand the budgetary impact of the decisions we're making. And also, so it's cohesive.
Yes.
Is that everybody? Because you have to speak up. All right. I think that's everybody. Thank y'all very much. Exciting times.
Thank you.
Michael, you're still on.
Okay. The next item is funding authorization for sidewalk on Old Village Run between Vermac Road and the existing sidewalk on Old Village Lane. This is a project, there's $500,000 included in the 2021 budget for this project. It doesn't involve any drainage improvements, any utility relocation, any right-of-way acquisition. So it's something that we can begin construction on pretty quickly. We've sent letters to the adjacent property owners to notify them of the project and provide contact information. And we've asked one of our on-call contractors, Autoco, to provide a construction estimate, and they've done that based on their unit price contract. It's $267,000. And including contingency and other costs, we're estimating the whole project will cost about $315,000, which is well within our budget. So we're looking to get this funded and start soon.
All right. Anybody have questions, comments, or concerns? Jim.
All right, Michael, looking good. I'm glad to see this get in there as we get back to in-person school. This will really help with the safety of kids walking up to Dunwoody from this area. So on the previous construction on Old Village Lane, after some initial hiccups, I think we ended up doing a great job of working with the neighbors, working with the concerns where people have got nicely landscaped front yards in the right of way, and that they've got sprinkler systems, and we did a great job of working with the neighbors. And my only request is let's do this one from the outset like we ended up doing that first project. Once we got into it a little bit, whatever we did, we were doing it right there. And let's before we set out on this one, let's recall the how we came to those successes on that first phase and do that from the outset. That's my only comment. Thanks. Looks great.
Joe.
Exactly. That was exactly what I was going to say, Jim. Michael, what you sent letters, but have you actually knocked on the doors of everybody that lives along there?
No, we have not. We sent them letters in the mail, and there's about a half a dozen that we're going to have to redo the end of their driveway. So we do have to get driveway easements from those people. So if anybody that reaches out to us, of course, we're talking to, but the ones that we're getting easements from, we are in direct communication with.
Does that, is there an HOA? Is there a neighborhood association for that area? Asking anybody else on the call.
They have an active swim tennis and they do the strawberry thing. They must have a way to communicate. But in the past, have we not knocked on doors beforehand? I thought we did a little. I know we've
always communicated by letter.
Okay. We can find a way to connect with the neighborhood and just send it electronically as well.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Obviously,
right.
We don't want to.
Right. So the one of the advantages of trying to communicate with people ahead of time is Jim and I can tell you for the 36 hours of our lives we're never getting back, is that no matter, it's better that the people want to have communication ahead of time so that it doesn't get delayed by a mailbox or a bush or whatever. So I'll work with you on that, Michael.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. And so you're bringing this to us to approve, or we don't even have to approve it?
If you want to approve it, you can, or we can bring it back next meeting.
No, we can't approve it tonight because it wasn't on the business agenda, but I think this can go on consent. Does anybody object? Okay. If we could just add this to consent. John, you have a question?
Well, I had one last one for Michael.
Okay, sorry.
On the PDF that's attached in the document, the sidewalk map, the color, I'm a little bit colorblind, I will admit. But you're going to start, it's Old Village Run. It starts at Vermac and it goes over to Village Creek Drive. Correct?
Yes.
So what's that other blue line that's going on Vermac on the west side?
That's another project have funded this year. I think it's just funded I think it's funded for construction, but we have to do some design work on that project. So that's another project that was funded this year.
Okay. All right.
On
That's not
Vermac.
what we're doing today or tonight. Okay. Thanks. I'm good. Thanks, Lynn.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
John.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Is there anything happening on Village North Court tying Village North Court into DES through the backside? We've talked about that in the past, and that would be a direct route for the entire neighborhood into the back of DES where they go to school instead of walking all the way around. Has there been any movement? I know the college owns some property. There might be easements, but is there any communication or anything we can do to move that type of project forward?
That's also a project we have funded this year. I think it's just funded for design this year. We'll probably have to acquire some easements, but we're planning to start working on that design this spring.
I see that as being transformational. I'd like to move that forward. To me, that's an important project. Again, it would cut down the length of walking to school for that entire neighborhood where they right now have to walk all the way around, and now they can cut through the back.
Yeah,
So thank you. I'm glad to hear that it's moving forward in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we'll move forward with design this spring and probably have a public meeting on that one sometime later this year.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, so everybody okay with this on consent? All right, thank you. All right, Michael, you again.
All right, the last item here is our 2021 paving plan. In 2018, we entered into a contract with Blunt Construction. It was a contract that was renewable for up to 5 years. And based on the quality of the performance of the first 3 years, we've negotiated an extension for 2021 paving. And we've compared it to previous years and some other recent bids, and we have some competitive pricing. The total cost for the paving on the original 2021 paving list was below our budget for this year. So we're recommending to move up about a dozen streets in Dunwoody North, as shown in the memo. There's some streets that are on the 2022 and 2023 paving plan. And in our original 5-year plan that we're working under right now, we show a lot of streets in 2022 that were optional, and that was contingent on whether we had enough funding. Or, there's streets that need to be paved, but we were budgeting conservatively, wanting to make sure we have enough funding, so they're listed as optional. If we move these streets up that we're recommending, there's more. It's more likely that we would be able to do some or all of those optional streets in next year's list. So we're recommending approval of a contract extension with Blunt in the amount of $2,960,709 plus a 10% contingency.
Okay. Questions or comments? Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Michael. Can you tell me the timing of this? If this gets approved, if it gets ratified and the funds are there, what's the timing for construction?
We wouldn't start any earlier than probably early to mid-March. I mean, it'd have to warm up some. I think last year we started around mid-March. So that would be the earliest. But the bulk of the work would probably be done in April, May, June.
Okay, I guess I just want to make sure because some of those streets, or at least one of those streets, is very narrow. Cars are parked on that street, and I would want to make sure that the Briars North community specifically is giving a full week plus of knowing that their street is going to be under construction so that they are fully vetted and can plan accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, we usually put out door hangers ahead of each street we pave, but on that one, we'll make sure we get them out a little earlier than we normally do.
And they have a homeowners association and a news group in there. So again, that's the only street that I'm really worried about in the sense of car traffic or the cars on the street. It's a narrow thoroughfare. And I just want to make sure that we plan accordingly since we know those facts.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, though.
Anybody else? Joe?
Yeah, Michael, I'm just in reading the memo and then kind of off of what you've verbalized, the current 2021 budget that was original budgeted for paving, was that the 2.75 million for SPLOST?
Yeah, that's city funds, and then we have a 400,000 from the state for LMIG money.
So we're not putting additional money from SPLOST funding into the paving. You're just, because we have the money and because of the quote, we're able to pave more roads, correct?
Yes, yeah, their original quote was, I think, around 2.5 million for just the list for this year.
Okay, I just wanted to make that real point clear. I kind of got that, but I just wanted to triple communicate that basically we're not adding to the SPLOST budget. We're using the same budget, but we got a good bid, and now we're able to accelerate some additional streets.
Yes.
In this current year. Okay, thanks. That's all I needed to hear. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? So I have one because I'm really particular about this. Oops, I lost you there for a second. So Andover Court is on there, but nothing around it is. I don't think, maybe Holliston. Hold on, let me pull up my map again. No, I don't see anything right there. Has everything else around it already been paved? Does it fit the puzzle? It just doesn't seem to me, I have a friend on that street. It doesn't seem to me that we need to pave that street. It has like literally 4 houses.
Yeah, Andover Court and I think it's Pyrenees Court is the other cul-de-sac there. We were picking those up because we're doing Stonehenge. The other streets like Andover Drive, Andalusia, they've already been paved.
Okay, that was my question. Okay.
I think it was about 5 years ago, maybe.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that the streets leading in had been paved.
Yes.
Because we kind of look silly. All right, does anybody have any other questions?
This is for approval?
Yeah, no, it's discussion, but consent for next week, everybody?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay. All right, thank you, Michael.
All right, thank you.
Get it. Public comments, Ginger?
If anyone would like to, actually, I see one. Hold on one second. Mr. Wolford, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Thank you, Ginger. Good evening again, Madam Mayor, City Council members. My name is Robert Wolford, and as a longtime resident in the Georgetown community, I just want to really let this council know, and also Eric Bozeman and Winston Mitchell, who will be working on the design tonight. I want them to know that we really appreciate the opportunity that lies before us, albeit with the challenges that it poses in getting some new structural design and enhancements to the Shambly Dunwoody Georgetown Bridge. I wanted to make a couple of points about that. As a longtime resident, I've looked at that bridge and used that bridge for 50 years personally. It's been the same concrete, sterile, chain link fence structure for over 50 years. So I just want the council to keep in mind when you come up to the budgeting challenges, which there's going to be, the last time it was done was 50 years ago. And what you do now may be what we end up with for the next 50 years. With that in mind, I would like to make a distinction with the PCID with And I really appreciated hearing from Ann Harlan tonight from the PCID, but I hope the council keeps in mind that these two very distinctive differences between the two bridges in the PCID area and the Georgetown area. Number one being that Georgetown, the bridge will be a total rebuild, and that lends more opportunity to be creative with the designs, and as opposed to the PCID, which is going to be only refurbished. And also the distinct differences, the distinct difference between the two is the Shambly Dunwoody Bridge is an entryway or gateway into a residential section of Dunwoody, as opposed to the other two bridges basically being gateways to the commercial area. That being said, I like the idea of keeping some thread of uniformity between the three bridges, knowing that there are distinctions between them. And finally, and more importantly, I want to mention again something I believe Winston Mitchell said during his presentation that I really appreciated. I think it encapsulates the number one priority or concern if nothing else gets done on this project. He said something, he was pointing out a couple of the design.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Said something to the effect of bring nature back into the space. And that's what we want to see. We want to see landscaping enhancements. We want to see the chain link fence come down, some kind of aesthetic pleasing fencing with all of that remaining functional. So with that, I thank you and look forward to this challenge. Good night.
Anything else? Anyone else, Sharon? Ginger, I'm sorry.
No other hands raised.
And Brittany, is there anyone there?
No, ma'am, there are no people.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. With that, city manager comments, and we do not have executive session tonight, correct?
That is correct, Mayor. On the city manager comments, in just a few moments, I'll send out the report along with the end of the year financial report. And then in Public Works, Peeler Road sidewalk, Tilly Mills sidewalk are under construction. The Spalding at Shambly Dunwoody intersection, we've done some work out there, but the heavy construction is going to start very soon on that. Utilities, as we all know, take a while to relocate and coordinate with all the utility companies. Under the police department, I do want to give praise again to the license plate reader system that we have in to assist our officers with solving crime. And just as a FYI, car break-ins, entering autos are up some. So we're kind of out of the period of time that we had where those were down due to the early stages of COVID. And unfortunately, some of the crime has returned of that type. Under parks, the new park signs are almost complete for installation. As y'all drive down Roberts, you'll notice the Austin school site, of course, has been removed. We're still working on removing the footers from that area. And so that's why the equipment is still there, but the building itself is gone. The Martin Luther King Day of Service, the department collected over 19,000 pounds of non-perishable goods during the Super Bowl of Caring event from December 21st through the January 18th. We had a total of 350 volunteers, planted 5,000 daffodil bulbs, 140 trees, and painted the remainder of the plaza at Spruill Arts Center. And a lot of those items have been posted online for pictures that people can take a look at. The community development is still going strong with 153 building inspections over the past 2 weeks, and includes 58 new permits in that department. Economic development, the Dunwoody Arts Commission members have been selected, and the first meeting is scheduled for this week on January the 28th. The Economic Development Department is also kicking off the process to update the city's economic development strategy. And then they've been busy as well, conducting 47 business retention calls and 10 business recruitment calls over the past reporting period. Information technology, just about complete with the transition to AT&T FirstNet for our city employees for their cell phone service. Also, all the new police fleet laptops are in the final stages of delivery and being installed in the vehicles. The Dunwoody Ambassador are ready to launch their new logo, t-shirt, video, webpage registration form. under the communication and marketing element of this report. Also, Jennifer's done a great job on the D-News and the vaccine updates. You'll find in there the ribbon cutting for the new Springwood connector. There's a YouTube video in there along with the MLK Day of Service that I mentioned earlier. The, let's see, finance. Of course, finance has a new vendor. So all that's been going very smoothly and successfully under Linda's leadership. And the risk manager position, which is a new position under our Jacobs contract, will begin on February the 1st. We also have the department submitted the 2021 budget book to the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, for review and hopefully another award this year. The department is also reviewing the nonprofit applications for care funding grants as they come in. Working with the multifamily units to ensure compliance with annual inspections as well in that department. One thing I do want to point out, the front reception desk in City Hall, for that matter, is open Monday and Friday from 8 to noon and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 8 to 5. I do want to remind everyone to please social distance when they're in City Hall, those employees and the public. We've done a good job with city staff that's here during the week. And we want to continue to do that, continue to be able to serve the public and follow social distancing while we're in the pandemic. The back office staff in most of the departments has a staggered work schedule to keep distance, and we work remotely as well. The municipal court is still operating, and we disposed of over 56 cases last week and reset 12 cases. Human Resources continues to manage, report intake, and contact trace for any COVID-19 cases we have within the city. So that concludes the report, and I will send that out to you all momentarily. Be glad to answer any questions along with the staff that's available online. Thank you.
Oh, I want to correct, just, it was inadvertent, but you said HR continues to contact trace any cases within the city. You meant the city staff.
City staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Right.
Good point.
We are
Thank
not operating our own contact tracing with.
That's correct. Thank you. Thank you.
Does anybody have questions for Eric? Okay. No? Oh, John. Okay.
Thank you, Eric, for your report. As far as the front desk being closed, I'm sure we're doing a very good job in the sense of advertising our online permitting process. Is there if somebody were to just show up, I doubt anybody just ever shows up with permits in hand on a day that we're closed, but if that were to happen, how do they get the information on how to do it? Is there handouts there outside the front desk? I just want to make sure that we're being as helpful to the permitting process to get that done.
No, that's a good point. And we do have notices on the building, on the front of the building of how to go online. And, fortunately for us, we were kind of, I'll say COVID ready or any kind of disaster ready prior to this event occurring with all of our stuff online. And the other thing too, is if somebody comes to the building, there's usually a staff member in each department here during the day as well that can assist the person. Fortunately, very high percentage, I always have to use that statistic, a very high percentage of people use our online services, and it has worked extremely well. And we can go by appointment at any time. So if somebody comes in or needs to come in on those hours afternoon on either Monday or Friday, we will accommodate them.
Great, thank you. One final thing, you mentioned the new website. I've noticed of some things that are missing. If you could have each of the office directors just look at their sections, check all the links and verify everything's there. I was looking for, based on the paving plan that we had in front of us today, I was looking, for example, for historic documents on the street ratings to know when each street needs to, when the laser truck went over. I'm just looking for documentation that used to be on the city website. If each of the directors could just make sure all the links work and things. I've seen a couple things missing, but right now I'm mentioning one that's jumped out at me. I should really have a list, but if they could just do that.
Sure, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, anybody else? No? Okay. Council comments. Jim, go ahead.
All right, I've got a long one tonight, folks, because I think it's worthwhile to recap where we're at with the MARTA bus ask and what has happened and where we're at on, in that process with MARTA. Just some of this is going to be old hat, but I just want everybody to be on the same page and how we got here. Of course, with COVID, MARTA dialed their bus service and train service way back. And the pain this was causing came to council's attention back in December, and we were able to get the folks some help, I believe through CAC or one of the nonprofits. I believe it was CAC. But that led.
It was St. Vincent de Paul, but yes.
St. Vincent de Paul. Okay, I knew it was one of the nonprofits. I wasn't positive which one. That led to me looking into where we were at on bus service, and I found, we had none whatsoever in Dunwoody. So I rang up in mid-December our MARTA DeKalb rep, Bill Floyd, one of the hats he wears is MARTA board member, is well known to the council as director of the Georgia Municipal Association, and I call him the mayor emeritus of Decatur, which is, I think, a good description for him. But in any case, I had a good conversation with Bill and pointed out that, we really needed to get some coverage to our lower income apartment communities, and that perhaps one way to do that would be to not be locked into just turning up existing bus routes, but to try to combine routes, and had a good conversation, and he agreed that he would take that to the appropriate people at MARTA. And again, this was back in mid-December. Well, the next thing we know, we're hearing from Doraville, because Doraville has seen some of these same things. And Andy Yeoman, who's one of our counterparts on the council over on the Doraville side, had come up with a resolution. And so our last council meeting, we passed complimentary resolutions urging MARTA to take a look at these issues, to take a look at combining some routes, getting some routes into these high density, lower income apartment communities. And so we passed that resolution at our last meeting. That got us some good press coverage, because the next Thursday it was in the AJC, and then on Friday, WSB was running that story at the bottom and top of the hour all day, I'm told. I missed it myself, but a couple of people told me about it. This led to a meeting last Friday with MARTA, and present at that meeting from Dunwoody were Mayor Deutsch and myself. Our counterparts from Doraville, Mayor Andy Gearman and Councilman Yeoman. On the MARTA side, we had Collie Greenwood, who's the deputy GM for operations, so he reports directly to Jeff Parker. We had Bill Floyd, our board member. We had Colleen Kiernan, who's the governmental affairs person, and Heather Aladef, who's one of their planners. And it was a good meeting. They explained how they got to where they are with what routes are open, which routes are closed. There was a very detailed prioritization process, having to do with, are there hospitals on the route, number of riders, that sort of thing. Because the bottom line is, with COVID, it takes 3 buses to do what 1 bus did pre-COVID, approximately, between social distancing and sanitization. So we understood their procedure, but our request of them was, hey, look at these routes, Doraville and Dunwoody side, in the vicinity of Peachtree Industrial, a little bit in Georgetown. Look at taking pieces of the existing routes in that area and turn up a bus service that hits the high density apartment communities in those areas. And this was fairly well received, I believe, by MARTA. We weren't just saying, hey, give us our bus routes back. We understand that that's, it's not easy during COVID, but here's an ask that, we're asking for you to look at this a little bit, with a little bit different angle to get some fundamental coverage back in an area that badly needs it. And they've been having conversations about the concept of transit deserts, and it meshed in very well with that. So we had a great conversation Friday. I had a short follow-up meeting this morning with their planner, Heather Aladeff. Michael Starling had put together some information on where our apartments were located, number of units, and that sort of thing that was very helpful for them in their planning process. But they'll be looking at that over the course of the next week, trying to figure out if there's a way they can, if they look at this a little bit differently, that if we would get into the prioritization stack with a, what I'll call an emergency bus route, we could get some service in North DeKalb that we simply do not have now. So the next follow-up meeting with, the whole group, with Collie Greenwood, with the mayors, is now set for next Tuesday. So they've got to, after the meetings Friday and this morning, they've got this week to kind of work on it and come up with something, and hopefully they can come up with something in that route, in that time frame, and hopefully get us a route that they can turn up for us. So let's cross our fingers on that. So that's kind of the summary of where we're at with MARTA, and let's hope it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for your advocacy and efforts on this. Anybody else have anything?
I just have a quick announcement. That on Sunday, the 31st at 2 p.m. is the Dunwoody Homeowners Association meeting. It's a hybrid in-person and Dunwoody Homeowners Association Facebook Live at 2 p.m. Limited seating for social distancing at the Dunwoody Nature Pavilion. And just on a side note, the parade theme and Grand Marshals will be announced, because I am a very optimistic person. We want a parade. So there we go.
We want a parade. And there you go. Anyone else? John, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. I'll just piggyback on what Jim had to say. When we had that last meeting regarding MARTA, I noticed that the very next day was the MARTA board meeting. So I put forth on top of our resolution, I drew up a little map and tried to see what was my dream bus route. And I did exactly what Jim was mentioning, in the sense that I drew a map to all of our apartment complexes, past our hospital in Peachford, into the Georgetown area, and back to the Dunwoody station. That got submitted to the MARTA board and was read as a public comment. And when I attended that meeting, then the next day, I heard the public comments all discussed by the board members. I heard Bill Floyd and other board members mentioning that area, and that it was a high priority for the MARTA board to tell staff to find a solution for us. So I think between us and Doraville, I think we're going to get some action. So kudos to Jim and everybody else that started the ball rolling. But I think hopefully we get some action on this.
Okay, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that GMA gave us a shout out for City of Dunwoody, and it's about that placemaking. Things don't have to cost a whole bunch, an arm and a leg, but we made great use of the COVID-19 funds, CARES Act funding. NFA Burger, leverage their al fresco funds, so they got some new picnic tables. And I hand out my business cards to the restaurateurs here in Dunwoody. Please take advantage of our al fresco dining grant here if you're going to help people sit outside and do that. So that's a really great thing. Hats off to Billy Kramer and friends. I went by the new park signs. I was over at Wynwood Hollow and went on Peeler there, and talk about placemaking, talk about gateway, whatever. It's nice. It's very attractive, and it's nice to be out there on Peeler to see it, and so on. So I really like that that's happening, that look and feel, that we're starting to see this sense of place, greater things. Great to see people out on MLK Day. I was at the Nature Center having fun cutting out English ivy. It's great because, instead of sitting in front of a computer, it was a good time. And as former Councilman Doug Thompson used to say, always love when you see sidewalks being built and concrete being poured, fixing a space, a hole on Mount Vernon on the sidewalks out there in front of, up at the power line, up by Tilly Mill there. You use see-click fix, you log a ticket, you can see things, we can fix those things just using the systems. and as well what's going on Peeler, what's going on Tilly Mill. It's just we're moving forward, you know, so it's great to see that. So thank you.
Hi, thank you. Anybody else? So I'm going to take a second and ask everyone listening to do a favor, which is I'm sure everyone is probably aware, vaccine sign up for the COVID-19 vaccine is a bit complicated and can be totally overwhelming to people who are not technically savvy. So if you have neighbors, friends, or family who may need your assistance, you know, please be sure to offer it. Because the goal is to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible. There is obviously a limit on the dosage, and plus I think we're having some distribution problems in Georgia. But I have found a neighbor actually showed up at my back door over the weekend asking me how to get a vaccine. And so as good as we think we are communicating, there's always more work to be done. Today, someone's dentist, a Dunwoody resident's dentist, sent them to me to help them try to locate a vaccine. So just be sure that you let your neighbors who may not be technically savvy know that you can assist them if possible. So as always, I ask people to be good and kind to each other. And with that, I could use, oh wait, Joe mentioned it, but he didn't give it a name. So Dunwoody won today a Visionary Award from the Georgia Municipal Association. There were over 50 applicants, 8 cities won, and it was for our picnic table project and the accompanying expansion of outdoor dining. And I am very grateful to city staff, Michael Starling and Rosemary Watts and everybody else on the city who helped put picnic tables together, including my husband and my son, Michael. And then all the groups that painted them, they are really and truly my most favorite thing, and they bring me joy, and we're still completing them. The Sproul Arts Center just unveiled theirs. So with that, congratulations to the city for the Visionary Award we won from the Georgia Municipal Association today. And with that, I can use a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Moved by Jim.
Second.
Second by Pam. All in favor? Signify.
Aye.
All right. Anybody opposed? No. Sharon, that's unanimous. Everybody have a great week. Stay safe.
Night all.
Night. Yep.
Bye-bye.